Good morning, Greene County.
Good
Most of you who don't know my ugly visage up here, I'm Bill Prince, and I'm over at the juvenile office. And thank you for all coming out today. Hopefully, everybody has exercised their franchise and gone out and voted. I see a few. I have voted stickers here, so you either voted or you rated the polling places, so you can feign social responsibility. So, anyway, it's great to be here this morning. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the 10 rules of implementation. You know, we've kind of been going over the great game of business these last 3 weeks or so. Angie Cruz a couple of weeks ago did a conversation about the why. Last week, Megan and Cindy did an excellent job on talking about sort of the higher laws. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the 10 rules of implementation. And this is kind of in our wheelhouse. I'm going to get a little bit away from some of the, I don't want to say the philosophy of the great game of business, but I want to try to make this relevant to us as a county. And I can just tell you that when I started reading through the 10 rules of implementation, I said, I got this because we just did this. The Greene County Juvenile Office, let me just give you a little bit of background. We sort of have this goal that's kind of unspoken, I guess, that we want to be the best juvenile office in the state of Missouri and the best juvenile office in the country. Possibly beat that. That's sort of our goal. And one of the things that we did in furtherance of that was we brought in a group from Virginia, the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Juvenile Justice, to do a probation systems review for us. In other words, you know, how could we better serve the youth and the families that come to us? And again, most of the people that come to us don't come to us voluntarily. They're not looking for our services. They get referred there. But how can we do that better? And so, oh gosh, what was it, 3 years ago? Has it been that long? It seems like some ways it seems like 10, but I don't know. So 3 years ago, our consultants started coming in, looking around, talking to everybody, seeing our processes, seeing our procedures. You know, and I can still remember sitting down with our lead consultant, and he said, you know, because your organizational structure is really getting in the way of what you're trying to do. Your organizational structure may actually be causing more harm to youth and families than it is doing well for these youth and families. And that's sort of a knife in the heart, quite frankly. You know, and we've had a lot of growth at the Greene County Juvenile Office over the last, I guess 10 years or so ago. And I often describe that growth as sort of like building an Ozark mansion, you know, where you just throw a bunch of rooms on an existing house and there's no real structure or organization to it. And that's kind of how we felt. So we undertook an organizational reform at the juvenile office. And you can imagine how that went over when you start telling people that you were going to change everything that they've known about structure, everything that they've known about who they're going to report to and the way things are. And, you know, so we've kind of talked about change, the impetus for a lot of change. Many times it's a crisis. You know, that was the reason that Jackson wrote the book, The Great Game of Business. They were in a crisis. You know, they were, one bounce check away from insolvency. Greene County started doing the great game of government one of those many years ago because of the fact that, you know, money was tight. So oftentimes, you know, crisis is an impetus for change. I don't know that we viewed our consultants' recommendations necessarily as a crisis. You know, we could have continued on with the status quo doing exactly the same things that we had always done. But it was certainly a motivator for change. And so when you start talking about changing small things, medium things, or big things, you know, there has to be some rules for that. And we changed a lot at the Greene County Juvenile Office, and I think you probably have all been involved in different organizations that change a lot. But the question is do you change well? Do those changes last? Do they stick? And that sort of thing. So I kind of want to talk about the 10 rules of 10 steps of implementation that the Great Game book talks about, and try to make those as relevant as possible, at least to our office for some real life experience. And of course, the first thing is to begin with the right leadership. I had trouble as I analyzed this because, I don't know that I'm necessarily the right leader. I think, hopefully people follow the mission of our organization, as opposed to following me or whoever our leader is. And when we talk about beginning with the right leadership, some of the virtues that are talked about in the Great Game is humility, vulnerability, servant leadership, and courage. And again, I don't know that any of those things necessarily apply to me, but I think those are things that you need to have. People want to follow a leader, but you have to be. At our office, I want people to follow our mission. I don't want people to follow me. I think if people follow a leader too closely, it becomes a cult of personality as opposed to following a leader. But there has to be somebody leading. There has to be somebody driving that. And I solved my problem by just surrounding myself with a bunch of good leaders, people who are smarter than me, people who have different skills than me. But it's important anytime that you're implementing any kind of change or new policies to have that leadership there. The second step of good implementation is sharing the why before the how. I think before our consultants came in, we were very good at telling our staff how to change. We're going to do these things differently this way now. But I'm not sure that we always communicated very well the why behind that. And so we started doing things at our office like communication plans. Letting people know, we think we're going to head this direction. Here's the why that we're doing it. And again, the why should tie into your mission. The why should tie into what your organization is trying to do, whether it's the clerk's office, human relations, road and bridge, whatever. What is your why? And so, so I kind of printed off our mission and vision statement that we have at our office. And do your offices all have mission and vision statements? Getting a lot of blank looks out. You should. You should have a mission and vision statement. Why do you come to work every day and do the things that you want to do? And our vision statement is youth that engage in the juvenile office and or juvenile court in Greene County will be empowered, their families will be strengthened, victims will be restored, and the community will be safer. And then our mission statement in support of that vision statement is that the Greene County Juvenile Office will provide best practices, progressive and trauma-informed care to the youth and families that engage in the juvenile office and or juvenile court. So that's our why. That's why we come to work every day to accomplish those things. And so it was important to let our folks know the reason for these changes that we were going to be making, how they tied in to our vision and mission. We weren't just changing for the sake of changing. We were changing for the sake of trying to get our people, to get the services that we provide to our youth and families to be the best available at all. So that's important to do that. And then the third step of implementation per the text is open the books and teach the numbers. But I think what that's really talking about is transparency. Change in the dark is not good. Keeping secrets from people is not good. Making information available to people is critical. Why are you changing? Here's why we're changing. Here's some numbers. Here's some outcomes. We are going to do this. Keeping people in the dark does no good except create rumors and gossip, and people create their own stories about what's going on. We found that even if you're really transparent with people, they create their own stories, and so, but at least they couldn't accuse us of keeping folks in the dark. So be open and be transparent. And then the fourth step is to focus on a critical number, whether that's a bottom line sales number, whether that's an employee retention number, whatever it is, focus on a goal. It is far too easy when you're doing change, particularly when you're doing system-wide change, to get distracted, to lose sight of what you're doing. So have a critical goal, have a critical number, have a critical outcome that you're keeping in mind and focusing on as you go through this process. And then step 5 is sort of related to that, in that you need to act on the right drivers. Again, make sure that the things that you are doing are ultimately informing your final goal, the outcome that you hope to achieve. The sixth thing, and this is something that we got frustrated with sometimes, and next week, I think it's next week, we're actually going to have a conversation about mini games. And when I first heard that term mini games, I thought, well, that's something like a Mario Kart or something like that, where you get off the main thing and play a little game, and that's sort of what they are. But it's a way to kind of create small wins. And I know we as a leadership team at the juvenile office would sometimes get incredibly frustrated because we had this goal inside of transformative change in our office and becoming best practices and trauma informed, but that doesn't happen with the snap of a finger. So we tried to identify smaller goals, smaller successes that you could celebrate. Because we would oftentimes sit, and Jill and Julie know this, and we would be so depressed, and then we would think back, gosh, well, we've done this, and we've done this, and we've done this, and it makes you feel better. So celebrate those small victories, because those small victories all add up to what your final goal is that you're trying to implement in the office. So make sure to celebrate those little ones. Then provide a stake in the outcome. Okay, tell your folks what they're going to get out of all of this. Why are we changing? Well, again, you can say, well, we're changing to provide better services to the youth and the families in Greene County that our office in Fort serves. And that's all good and noble, but your staff's going to want to, well, how does this impact me? And, we identified, a number of major issues in our office in terms of the way things were working, communication issues, inconsistency issues involving accountability and lack of accountability, conflicting information that people were getting from different levels of supervision, and things of that nature. And so we pretty much told, the staff, this should be a better place for you to work when all of this is said and done. Morale should be higher. Morale should be better. There will be better communication. There will be better lines of control. There'll be better span of control. And so if you can get your folks to buy into what you're doing by showing, these are going to have real and measurable improvements for me, I think they're much more likely to be participatory in a meaningful way. Am I going too fast or am I going too slow? Yeah, you're good. Okay. Sometimes I get to preaching and so on and so forth. The next one is keep score. Okay, measure what you were doing. If you can measure what you were doing, you're likely to do it better. Greene County Juvenile now has three it's measuring, people in our data. We did not have a data department up until about 5 years ago. I don't know how we made any decisions in Greene County Juvenile up until that point. How do you know whether you're doing something well or whether you're doing something poorly if you can't measure it? Cindy's a data person. She tells us all the time about numbers. Keep an eye on this number and that sort of thing. But keeping score sounds sort of retaliatory. It sounds kind of vengeful, but you've got to measure in some form or fashion what you're doing. Now, not every department's going to be able to have data people and things of that nature. But again, have that goal in sight. Figure out some way to measure, whether it's anecdotally or through statistics, if you're making progress. Again, you can celebrate those small wins. I can still remember the COVID thermometers that used to be outside. Remember those things about percentage of folks that were vaccinated and everything? And slowly but surely that would creep up. We're keeping track of something. We're showing how the system's working, how that goal is being achieved. So it's incredibly important to measure what you're doing in some form of fashion to again see that you're achieving the results that you want. The ninth step is follow the action. Okay, and again, this is kind of where huddles come in. Again, whether you're at Springfield or manufacturing, whether you're at Greene County, where people are getting together, where people are being informed about what's going on. Here's what we've done since last week. Here's what we're going to do next week. getting the people together, getting the people in the same room, and letting them know how things are going. That's why huddles are so incredibly important. And I think those of us who went to huddles regularly before the pandemic really, I think, missed that level of connectedness and knowing what was going on, particularly in times of a crisis situation. Because whether you know it or not, we were in a crisis situation these last couple of years, right? We look back and go, oh, yeah, that pandemic. I remember couldn't buy toilet paper and things like that. But trying to manage an organization, whether it was the county that the commissioners had to do, whether it was all the questions HR, I'm sure got sick of answering, fielding how do we manage people in a pandemic, and just so having those opportunities where people could come together and talk about the goals and how we're doing, how we're moving there. Those are critical. So it's important to do that. And then the last part of that is applying this high involvement planning. Again, where you're really kind of looking down the road, where we're not just focused 5 inches away from our face, but focused maybe a mile down the road and looking towards the future and that sort of thing. Many crises can be avoided through proactive planning. If you kind of know what's coming, sometimes you don't know what's coming. Again, that the pandemic hit us out of the blue. Sometimes financial crises hit us out of the blue. But many times, if you look back at the problems that are facing your organization and things like that, 2020 hindsight tells us you could have seen them coming. If you had been sort of a little more forward-looking, if you had been a little more proactive. And again, if you can prevent those crises from emerging in the first place, then you can spend more time focusing on kind of the positive of your organization, things that you're really trying to accomplish. And kind of the last thing is that's in the materials this week anyway, is big bold print that says, "Remember, you are not alone." So we are all in this together. We all may do different things in the county and for the county, but we all share sort of a collective mission, to serve the citizens and the taxpayers of Greene County in an efficient and professional way. And again, it's not always easy. Change is hard. Change, probably during the process of changing our organization, a year of the most difficult times that many of us ever faced. And I think I'm looking at Jill and Julie again. There were times where I think we just wanted to say, "I'm going to work at UPS. I'm just gonna do something else." But in the long run, I think it all turns out to be worth it very, very much. So those are the 10 steps of implementation. Did I miss anything or butcher them too badly?
Great.
So does anybody have any questions or about what we did at Greene County or about the juvenile office or about any of the steps of implementation? Yes, sir.
Bill, you talked about creating the small wins or some early wins, and then you kind of alluded to the fact that you realized that you hadn't done that. So what do? Do you go back and, hey, we didn't celebrate this 6 months ago and this 2 months ago, so we're going to stop, we're going to celebrate that? Or do you just kind of learn from the mistake and go on and start doing it there? How do you make that transition when you realize you haven't?
Yeah, I don't know that we've still been real good at celebrating with the office as a whole. I will tell you that the change was traumatic for a lot of people. People don't like change. It's not in most people's comfort zone. And so the way we started our process is we created, we called it, in my acronym straight, the Change Management Team. Is that what it's called? So we gathered 7 or 8 folks from across the office and created this change management team that was sort of going to organize the change. One person can't do all this. And that led to our reorganization. We created an executive team, which is we basically reorganized the entire office. I had 18 direct reports to me, which was just too many. And so we created a director level position. So now we have an executive team that consists of 8 folks. And I think it was at that level where we would get frustrated that, gosh, we're just not doing enough. We haven't seen enough happen and all that sort of stuff. And so we would sort of, in retrospect, sit around some of our executive team meetings where we would get frustrated and feel, like, gosh, we've done all this work and it doesn't seem like we've pushed the rock too far down the road. But then we would think back and just say, X, we've done Y, we've done Z. And then that sort of gave us the juice to move forward. To be honest, there's a number of staff who probably didn't want to celebrate. They didn't like it, So, I can remember still sitting there, I think it was last May. And I said, gosh, how's it coming up on the 1 year anniversary of the day that we announced all this stuff? Should we have some kind of I don't know, cake and cookies or something? Or no. Because for a lot of people, it was not a cake and cookie moment. I mean, it was hard. And when you do things in new ways, some folks just don't like that. And, we've lost some folks, just Julie.
I was just gonna say, one of the things I think that we've done that's helped is create a report out in our executive team. So every other week, each of the directors reports out on what they're doing, what they're accomplishing, and that allows you to take everyone else's wins back to your team. It also makes you pause and think, okay, what have we been doing? What have we been working on? So just being mindful, making sure you're talking about it is one of the things, because we kept surprising ourselves when we did stop to talk about it. So now we've just created a place where we can do that on a regular basis.
And to piggyback on that, we are more, we've been more mindful of having all staff meetings. We have about 100 staff at the juvenile office, and some of them work different shifts. So we keep our all staff virtually, and we do is it a survey monkey? And so it's their people in our offices opportunity and chance to give kudos, and it's anonymous, but they can put their name if they want to. So it's like who's doing something good in the office, and it gets read out in the all staff meeting, as well as there's questions too.
Yeah. It was funny when we started out right after the change, and we had questions and kudos. And the questions were, when are you guys going to go jump off a cliff? Those are kind of the questions. I mean, they were very,
Fix everything.
the changes have been in place for 3 weeks now. I nothing that, I don't know this anything, very negative and that sort of thing. And now we've gotten away to, we almost get no questions anymore, of any kind, positive, negative, or neutral. But the kudos have just really expanded. And, it's not kudos for us. It's I think we're giving out kudos. I think people are giving out kudos to each other. Before the change, we were pretty siloed, in terms of the different functions of our office. And we're seeing, kudos given from different groups of people to other groups of people. So again, that would be one of those small wins that you could, we're breaking down the silos. It's not measurable, but and again, our data folks are working really hard to show that we're getting better outcomes for kids through this new structure. So it's been interesting for sure.
So, Bill, I think it's pretty brave of you and your team to make this effort, and I applaud you for it. As you say, it can be painful, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Is there anything that comes to your mind? You talked about the challenges of doing the process, but was there a moment in time where the light bulb came on, the aha moment, where you had perhaps a staff or a team member who really didn't get it, but then all of a sudden they got it? I mean, is there something along the path that brought that to light?
I can remember, and I won't give names, but I do remember one of our team members shared, with us. This was relatively, I don't know, maybe the midway point that, and this is somebody who's kind of good connective tissue between the executive team and the staff who's doing the work on a day-to-day basis. And, she came in one day and she shared, I think this is really working. She said, the feedback I'm getting, from the folks on the ground is good. I'm really seeing now the need for these changes and why they had to occur. And yeah, I think that was kind of a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Other people, saw the need for the change and just said, I don't want to be part of it. I don't like the change. and moved along, and, that's good too.